Okay, so b'siyata d'shmaya, we're now beginning to study the 6th stanza of Anabakayach. We spent a long time on Chasen Kadosh Baruch Tuv Chanala, the Secha, the 5th stanza. And now we're jumping into the second to last, moving into the energy already of Erev Shabbos, which is the sphere of Yisod, which we're going to talk about in later shiurim, as is Hashem. I reckon probably we'll spend 4 to 5 weeks on this.
This one?
There are 30 pages in the Sefer Anabakayach. We're not going to learn, again, the whole, or not, that's not our subject, really, Anabakayach. Otherwise, we'd do a real study of it. But I'm selecting the pieces that I feel are really, really crucial to understanding the basic foundations for how he approaches, based on Rav Kook, really, how they approach this stanza in Anabakayach, number 6. Thanks for coming. Heliger Vanchel. And we're going to begin tonight to take a look at the first 2 words. Yachid, gei'eh. Both references to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yachid means, how would you translate Yachid? Different from Echad?
Unique.
Unique, yeah? L'chayre Yachid means unique. Miyuchad, something that's
Singularity.
On its own. Singular, in a category of its own, and we're going to learn a lot about that tonight. Yachid, we refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the unique one, and we're going to learn what that means. Gei'eh, the proud one. Emelashan Gaiva, right? Gei'eh, the proud one. Yachid, gei'eh. And then the stanza continues, and we're going to learn about this in the future weeks, very, very deep. Yachid, gei'eh, la'amcha penei, zoichrei kedushasecha. Turn to your nation, zoichrei kedushasecha, who remember your holiness. Very, very deep. Zoichrei kedushasecha. There are so many different things we could say about Am Yisrael in the context of Kedusha. We choose to use a form of the word zechira, remembering your Kedusha. We're going to learn about what that is probably in 2 weeks from now, or next week, or 2 weeks from now. We will get to that, Be'ezus Hashem. So let's begin first just with the word Yachid. We're going to take it one word at a time and see how much we can get through. There's a lot, but all b'siyata d'shmaya. Okay, Yachid. L'chaim tam l'sham. Make a bracha? Amen. Yachid. Reishis kol Hashem Baruch Hu Yachid ba'olam ve'ein zulasei. The first thing is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yachid in Mitzias. There is nothing that is within the same general category as the Infinite One, as the Creator. Hu bara es hakol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything. Hu Elokei ha'elokim. This is referred to in the Navi Daniel. Va'adoinei ha'adoinim. He is the power over all other lowercase p powers within creation that Hashem gave them energy, but ultimately Hashem is manhig everything. Anybody who has mastery over any other person in any strata of society or in any layer of creation, Hashem is the Adoine Ha'adoine. Beyond that, Hakel Hagadol Hagibar V'Hanoira, the great and the mighty and the awesome God. Asher Kol Diyari Ara Ke'ein Doimin Ka'ayin Doimin Ukalei Chashiven Ve'efes V'Tayu Nachshavulai. That everybody who lives on the earth, klape, the infinite creators, ka'ayin, doimin, is like nothing. Ukaloi chashivan, it's like they don't exist. The efes with tayu nechshavalai, they're compared to nothingness and chaos. Ke'im bil'adai ve'efes zulasei. Because from Hashem's perspective, there is nothing. It's just the infinite godliness. Inyan hayosi is Baruch Shema Yachid. So what we mean when we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yachid, Eina Kavana Rak Shehu Ha'Elokim HaYachid Ve'ein Elokim Zulasai, is not simply a reference to this that there is no other God. However we define God, there is no other being that fits in that category, whether it's the creation of Mitzias or the canvas upon which all of creation is drawn, is painted. It's not just that there is no other being that fits into this category. Ella shebe'emes, what we mean to say that Hashem is Yachid, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hanimtza v'hakayam hayachid. It's not just that when we think about the concept of God, Hashem is in a category alone and there is no other God but Him. It's that from the standpoint of Hashem's being Yachid, let's see how to say this. He's Yachid in the sense that there is nothing that fits into the category of anything klape Hashem. So from Hashem's perspective, again, it's not that, okay, there's creation, and then we have this category called God, and there's only one entry, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Ein Sof. It's that from Hashem's perspective, what it means, Yachid, He is alone, and that aloneness encompasses all else. So there's an impossibility, the MS, at least on that level, of there being anything else that falls outside the category of Hashem's being Yachid. Not that He's Yachid, I'm trying to find a way to say this very delicate, not that He's Yachid in contradistinction to something else, but He's Yachid in as much as from the standpoint of His being, Mamish being, there is nothing else against which to be compared.
It follows from Sunday Shia.
Huh?
It follows from Sunday Shia.
Yeah.
The concept of mi bar eile, the concept of going back to its roots.
Yes, at the root of me. Yeah,
right.
In that place, nothing.
Isn't this essential, like the Ramchal says at the beginning of Derech Hashem, basically?
Yachid Hanimtza, he quotes a lot from Derech Hashem actually in this section. Absolutely, right? Echad Yachid u'miyuchad. Let's see how he says it. Ela shebe'emes HaKadosh Baruch Hu hanimtza v'hakayam hayachid. Right? He's not just the only God, He's the only. Right? Without even using any other word after that. He is. He. H. Right? Just nothing. The
only existence.
The only existence.
Hakayam
Hakayam hayachid.
Right.
Let's see how he says it. Let's see how he says it. V'chol hanivram kulam einam kayamim. Right, from the standpoint of Kudsha B'richu, from his perspective, what the Ramchal, what the Nefesh HaChaim calls mitzidai, from Hashem's perspective, there's nothing else. V'chol hanivram kulam einam kayamim. Nothing else exists. The einam oimdim, and they only stand. This is very deep. Ela mitoich mitziyusai yizbarach shemai. The only reason that anything else exists at the level that it exists, because we can say that I exist and that you exist and that these battles exist and the chairs exist in relation to not existing, which is something else that we know is true. There are things that exist and that don't exist then. For example, a person lights a candle and the flame is there, it exists. When you blow it out, we can rightly say the flame no longer exists, right? So it's all within a relative framework. Relatively speaking, we can say that something exists and then it doesn't exist anymore. But even while it exists, klape, in relation to its subsequent potential no longer existing, the only reason it is because Hashem is. Memela, it is because Hashem wills it. That's the Nakuda that he gets to now. It's very, very deep. V'chol hanevraim kulam, anything that exists, einam kayamim, be'emes, and this is what it means. They really don't exist. In what sense? Because their existence is, here's the key word, contingent. Dependent upon. It's not an independent existence. So sure, it's here, but it's only here, each drop is only here because there was an ocean out of which a drop emerged. But the ocean is what exists. Only because Hashem exists. And here's the word Rabbi Yitzi brought up. Because Hashem is willing all of this, every aspect of it, every detail of it, every facet of it. Kol kiyam hanevraim. So therefore, from this standpoint, our existence, which is an existence, again, klape, the flame being blown out, and then even within the illusory realm of existence, it no longer exists, right? So our kiyam is nechshav, from this standpoint, is considered ka'ayin mamish mul kiyumai umitziyusai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is considered nothing, klape, in relation to Hashem's kiyum. Why? Because whatever we could say about our existence is already a statement about Hashem's existence. Memela, how could we put the two bichlal in the same category? We don't exist like Hashem exists. We exist because Hashem exists. And so Memela, whatever I say about my existence is bichlal in a different universe. I mean, it's not even within the same conversation about the essence of our existence, which is Hashem's existence.
Is it because of the fragility of it, or is it just because it's fed by Hashem's existence? So
it's not even fed by it only exists in as much as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making the conscious choice to will it to exist. What kind of existence is that? So from our standpoint, again, there's no nimshal, there's no mushal to compare this to because it's all of life. But the way that we experience life with our independent existence, including, it's not a theoretical concept, right now, this moment in time, this space within the whole entire world, which is currently the center vis-a-vis our consciousness. We're all focused here. So everything else around the globe, which is why it's round, because it always revolves around the given point of consciousness, which is observing, right? So this is, from our perspective, this center, and this moment is now, is only here because it was, is, right? Is only because Hashem is willing it right now. This is the kiyum of our mitzias that's contingent on Hashem's mitzias.
Yeah. But why does Yachid have to be in relation to us? Why can't Yachid be in itself?
What's the question?
What do you mean?
Yachid, how is it a shvach for Hashem if his shvach is only klapa us? We're nothing. Like what's the big deal? Like how can you start saying that Hashem is Yachid because klapa him? Like we're our kiyum and whatever our kiyum is only because he wills it. So therefore, that's his shvach. How's that a shvach?
Yeah, I'm not sure that in this context it's used as a shvach per se.
It's a description.
It's a declaration.
Right.
Yachid, referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as he is. Let's see again. We always open up sugyas and we get caught. Let's let him open it up. Yeah, Seder. Let's see how he opens this. Okay. Kol kiyum an Avraham nechshav ka'imamish mul kiyuma mitzuyusa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But move on zeh, from this perspective, Hashem is Baruch Hu Yachid mamish. Not just again one in relation to the potential of there being other gods. He is it. He is it. Yachid mamish ki ein oid bil adai. There is not no one else along with him. There is nothing else aside from his energy. Ve'ein kiyum l'shum nivra. Which is, by the way, an upgrade in our perception of this thing called Hashem. I think I mentioned in shiur previously that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Schusi Agan Aleinu, would spend a lot of time with the maskilim of the day, which is one of the reasons that they fought against him, because they couldn't grasp the fact that a Hasidic Rebbe is sitting and talking to people that they threw out of every community and they saw as attacking the foundations of Yiddishkeit. Rabbi Nachman was one of the first mekarvim, right? He understood. You have to spend time with them. You have to build a relationship. You have to be makar them with love. And he almost succeeded. It's hard to imagine that ad kedei kach, that he failed. How far these people were in a certain sense. That toward the very, very end of one of the primary maskilim, was mamish, one of the prime disciples of the early leaders of the Haskalah. His name was Hirsch Ber, who lived in Uman, and that's where Rabbi Nachman spent the last kufa of his life. When Rabbi Nachman was nifter, a few weeks before Rabbi Nachman was nifter was Rosh Hashanah, because Rabbi Nachman was nifter on Chol Hamoed Sukkos on the fourth night. The Shvizin of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Shvizin of Netzach, and at the Levaya was this Hirsch Ber, who had just joined the Breslover Hasidim for their Rosh Hashanah davening. He was growing a beard, and he was already being mitzdaref to the tefillas. And Rabbi Nassim was crying. Demise, you can't imagine, by Rabbi Nachman's Levaya. And he kept on saying again and again, Rabbi, Rabbi, Rabbi. Rabbi Nassim was screaming out. So Hirsch Ber came over to him and he said, you think you lost your Rebbe? He said, all of us lost our Rebbe. So at the very end, Hirsch Ber, because of Rabbi Nachman, what would he do with them? He would just play chess with them. Didn't talk theology or anything like that. He would talk science, math, geology, geography, all the wisdoms that Rabbi Nachman had mastered, philosophy, and they would sit and play chess. And one day, the maskilim summoned up enough courage to broach the topic of religion and God, and they said, we can't handle it anymore, and we're talking among ourselves. How could it be that a person who's as brilliant as you are, and as learned as you are, knowledgeable, plugged in as you are to the mitzias, to the realities of this world, that you would believe in such a far-fetched notion as there being a God? It's like a fantasy. It's, how could you fall for that? So Rabbi Nachman looked at him and he said something incredibly deep. He said, the God that you don't believe in, I don't either believe in. Your concept of God is not the correct definition. And the concept that you have of God is not a believable God. That you're right. I don't either believe in that God. So the Rebbe's approach was not to start to prove to him. The Rebbe was, first of all, just to take a step back and look at what our definitions of God are. And Mamela, when we upgrade our definition of God, it becomes far more believable and far more mature, far more developed, far more evolved, far broader, and far more believable as adults. And so here we're taking a step out of the general definition of God that most of us have growing up and most people maintain throughout their adulthood, that there's this power, this koach, this being called God, and God is all the way up there somewhere in some spiritual realm, and he created the physical world. From this standpoint, God is not like a being that exists in the category of all these different things that exist. We have the world, we have the physical realm, and then other realms, and we have planet Earth and different planets and space, and somewhere in some realm there's also a being called God who created all of this, right? Mm-hmm. No, it turns out that God is just an infinite creative energy who is as present here as he is anywhere. And that in a certain sense, and it takes a developed mind to be able to think about this deeply, everything and every moment and every space and every experience and every sensation, the experience of being conscious is already an experience of being immersed in that infinite source, which underlies all of creation, is infused within all of creation. It's a completely different perspective on what this means, Hashem. Right? So that's the journey that we're taking now. Ki ein oid bil adai is not just that there's no other God, there's nothing else but this energy. The ein kiyum l'shum nivra el b'cheftzei yizbarach shemai. There is no existence of anything without being fundamentally founded on and rooted in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. Shechafetz ba'ilamai, that Hashem wills creation into being, and wills creation to carry on developing. Lefikach, therefore, mechayas hakol, he gives life to everything, not just in a general way, in a pratious way. Every atom that joins together with other atoms to form any entity is being powered right this instant by the will of Hashem for that tiny prat in existence moving out to form a limb of a being, of a species, of a category of creation, and so on and so forth, for every tiny detail in the Bria. And which keeps everything going. And Cain, therefore, hatayar Yachid. So he doesn't say it's a praise per se. It doesn't say a shvach. Yachid, it's not a praise. It's a tayar. It's a description, right? It's a descriptive term that we use to refer to one aspect of Hashem. Yachid. Moira, this teaches the singularity of Hashem, but again, not vis-a-vis something else, just the essential singularity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's being, and in his ultimate ascension beyond anything else in this context, that can't be imagined. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't in any way be put into the same category as his Nivraim, not just because he's the creator and we're the creations, but because, again, it's not just in the sense of that relationship. By the way, that would be enough not to put us in Hashem's category. He created us. We're mela contingent on him. This is even deeper. Even after he created us, we are still him, right? We are still, it's not just this famous Nefesh HaChaim and Shar Aleph and Shar Yichud V'Emunah, and Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, and the Tanya, where there's a distinction drawn between a human that builds something, that constructs something, and a Kadosh Baruch Hu that builds something. What's the difference? A human being constructs something, he walks away, and the thing that he built is standing. Why? Says both the Nefesh HaChaim and the Baal HaTanya, the reason that a person can build something and walk away is because when a human constructs something, he took material that was there before him, he rearranged it in a different way, he took 4 pieces of wood, he built it into a table, he transformed what was already there. Immediately he can walk away, and what was already there continues to be yotzer, now in a different form. Yeah. Beautiful, right, he's a yotzer. Yesh mi yesh, that's exactly right. But because by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem creates the material and then forms it. Memela, the material wasn't there before HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it together. And now that it happens to be in a different form, it doesn't leave the fact that it's still contingent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu still being there. We call this Hamachadesh Betuvai B'chol Yayim Tamid Ma'itz Bereshis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't just create the world and walk away. Chas v'shalom, this is still Hashem pumping creative energy, yesh mi ayin, from the realm of ayin into the realm of yesh every split second, which is the realm of bina. Mi is yesh mi ayin, the world of bria.
What is the yetzer ar? She's a bar ar. Hashem is never a Yotzer, he's always a Bara.
We'll have to...
It's another story.
Yeah, another sugya, right? But for now, why are we bringing this up? Because this is what we mean. We can't put anything into that category. It's more than just Hashem is the creator and we're the creations. It's that toich kedei us being creations, we are still being created every split second in the most all-encompassing way, in the most pervasive way. Very, very deep. So it's a completely different category. Because klape, the category that includes Hashem, there is no other category. Because that category is all-encompassing. Every other category is within that one category where only Hashem is Yachid, because only Hashem is, because only Hashem, because only, because, be. Dot of ink. Nothing. Ein Sof. Just Hashem. Just HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'hu hakayam hayachid b'toikif mitziyusai she'ein la aroich v'shir. That's Kodesh Baruch Hu. He just is. Nimsa, so we find she'hatayar yachid shayne b'tachlis mehatayar chasen. This is the relationship of the previous verse, where now we're moving into a whole different realm. What was chasen? Hachasinus misyacheses, similar word. Hachasinus misyacheses l'Kodesh Baruch Hu kimisha ninsa ba'olam. What did it mean that we call the Kodesh Baruch Hu chasin? There's a world, and this world taka exists, and in this world of existing things, there's the metzius of Ra that doesn't need to be completely wiped away, but needs to be transformed, like we learned in depth. And this is a realm of challenges. This is the realm of other forces, and so on. And yet, Kodesh Baruch Hu's energy can be found here. Chasinos. Kimishanimsa ba'olam. There's a world, and a Kodesh Baruch Hu's light is so powerful and rooted in such a lofty place, it can even reach us here. It can even reach us here. Ela shemitziyusay va'oyrei chasinim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's godliness and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light is, what was the word we used? Resilient. And so it makes it from all the way up there, all the way down here. It's not impacted and wiped away. It's here. And it's not impacted from anything in this world. But after we describe that, and the way in which the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, rooted in a place of ayin, of keser, is so powerful that it's able to come all the way down into the world. And so Chas and Kadosh is like, we're looking at it from our perspective, where there is a world, and yet we can pick up on the whispers of Elokus within this world. Now we shift back into the perspective of Hashem. The realm where the Chasinus begins, not where it ends. To use another mashal from the Balatanya, the difference between a ray of the sun and the sun itself. From the perspective of the ray exists. Balatanya in a number of places. Right? From the perspective of the ray, it exists. It is a ray of the sunlight. From the perspective of the sun itself, the ray is batul umuvutul. It doesn't have any independent what's the word? Significance. Existence. Significance.
Even more, the ray itself in the sun.
Right.
Its whole existence is the sun.
Is the sun. Yeah.
It's only when it goes far, far, far away from the sun, all of a sudden we give it a name. Oh, it's a ray.
Right, a sun ray.
But when it's closer to its source, it's the sun.
Bidyuk. So this, Chavra, is the difference between stanza 5 and stanza 6. Stanza 5, Chasin Kadosh, is from the perspective of the ray. All the way distant down in the lower realms of creation, Tzimtzum, Vechule, all the way down, where there's a world, and wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's R is shining down all the way to here.
Chivas is something which is to do with Tzimtzum. Because if it's the sun, there's no Chivas anymore. There's nothing to kosher. This just is.
Right? Yeah. Even to be able to recognize it at all, to give it its own being, right? Its own existence. That's Chasin Kadosh. Now, it's like in a certain way, video games have given us this. Now you switch back into the other view. It's like first person player, and then boom. It's like you can just toggle the switch, right? And now you're back into the. So you go from the perspective of the ray, and then now it's the perspective of the sun. Yachid gei'eh. Where the whole realm of challenges, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's R is so powerful that Chas and Kadosh, it's able to reach even here, that whole realm is only part of Yachid gei'eh.
So it's almost like saying, you think this is great. Haha.
Yeah.
Although I have news for you. Yachid gei'eh.
Exactly. In the most ultimate extreme sense. You go mamish all the way from the end realm to even before the beginning.
But this
to
whole
the place of
One is Olam
Ein
Abriya, the
Sof.
other one has nothing to do with Olam Abriya.
What does?
One is Olam Abriya, Olam Yetzirah, where we are, and we can recognize
Olam
greatness.
Asiyah.
Let me see.
Olam Asiyah, where we can, even in Olam Asiyah, there's Tzimtzum, where we can recognize God. It's like Chasen. But if we tap out in our mind from God's perspective, we go away from all these Olam Asiyah, even in our mind.
That's right.
And that's why there's no Olam Asiyah. It's just
That's right. From Olam Asiyah into
it's almost like
into beyond that Silas, even from the way that he's describing it. Elukus Gamor.
Right.
Okay, let's carry ours. There's a lot to get to. Hachasinas Mesiachas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Misha Nimtza Ba'olam. Right. L'umasais hatoyer Yachid. What this means, Yachid, meroimam as HaKadosh Baruch Hu mikol musik shabaylamais. It's beyond anything that exists because it is the category that includes the category called existence. So from that standpoint, there is nothing. From that standpoint, it's just HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like Hashem says, Ani Rishon, Ani Acharon. Ani Hashem, loishi nisi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't undergo any change from his perspective, like we say in the morning. Atu hu ad shaloi nivra elam, atu hu mishin nivra elam. From Hashem's perspective, it's all the same. Mikol tfisas mitzia shal hanevram lohirishu nale umarayma ma'oid ma'oid. Talking about this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above and beyond in an incredibly intense way. Ad she'ein lahashvoisai. That from this standpoint, and again, it seems like a simple concept, but it takes 27 minutes now to really develop it properly and to get it, to really understand this. The way in which ein lahashvoisai ularicha, because every child knows this. Of course, there's nothing compared to God. But philosophically, it's very, very deep. Why is it that we can't compare anything to God? Because if we are in this standpoint from these glasses, there is nothing to compare it to, because it is all there is already. You see, so it's not a matter of, well, okay, like I said, we're the creations, and he's the creator, so yeah, you can't compare creations to creator. It's much deeper than that. From this element, the whole concept of comparing, which already necessitates there being two things, one to compare against the other, is already negated from the standpoint of the fact that category number one is category number two. It contains category number two. So the very premise of there being something possible to compare to is already null and voided. Because all there is Yachid. Yachid, ein oid milvadai. Ad she'ein lahashvoisai ularicha klau be'erchei hanevraim va'olamais. This is what we refer to when we say Yachid. Now we talk about gei'eh. After we speak about Yachid, now we talk about gei'eh. Of course, we can understand that these two things would be connected. What does gei'eh mean? It's a reference to gaiva. What is gaiva? Gaiva is uplifted, arrogance, above that which is above others. Right? That's the concept of gaiva. Something that stands out. Something that's yotzim min haklal. Right? So here he asks a very important question. Again, I just selected different paragraphs. Sheniyesh lishal. We can ask very simply. Everybody knows that gaiva is the worst thing in the world. Look in the Gemara in Saita, Daf Hey, Daf Vav. Gaiva is horrible. So in Cain, Keitzad Onometarim Bas Hashem is Baruch Shemai. How could we possibly describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu as having a midah that we work on, right? That we try to make sure that we're not connected to this midah, and all of a sudden we're calling Hashem Yachid gei'eh. Hashem is the prideful one. How are we praising Hashem when we say every morning, Shiur la Hashem, we will sing to Hashem ki gei'eh, because He is the arrogant one, right? He is the prideful one. How is that a praise? We also say in Tehillim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu enclothed Himself in gaiva. So he says, there are a number of things we can say in response to this question. This is also very deep and important. Reish's call, first of all, Nekudas Hatiyav Shebegaiva Hu HaSheker Sheba. What is it that's so repulsive about gaiva? It's not the gaiva in and of itself, it's the sheker in the gei'eh. It's the deceptive nature of that which purports to be above. Kasher bria achas mizga'eh u'misnases al chaverta. It's when one member
Misuse.
of a category where everything is fundamentally unified, the same, chooses to pretend to lift itself above as if to say, I belong in another category, when in fact, it doesn't. It's the sheker shaba that makes gaiva so repulsive. Because ube emes, in that sense, b'chol makim shabai yesh shivyon, that in every place where you have sameness, equality, then in makam l'gaiva. So then, because we already agreed that everything already is in one fundamental existential category. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a hierarchy that's valid, but that means when something wants to choose to pretend as if it's yotzim and aklal, existentially speaking, and not within the hierarchy of society, where we can still maintain the realization that although one person is the doctor and one person's the patient, for example, but ultimately they're still both humans and they still recognize their fundamental existential sameness. But all the while that one being within that category chooses to now present itself as if it's out of that category, that's disgusting, because that's the sheker of that kind of gaiva. Right? In this, again, existential sense, not within a societal framework, but for one creation to now lift itself out of the realm of having been created, which is an essentially humbling understanding. Like, we are not independent, we were created, and from the standpoint of Yachid, we are being created, beamed into existence against our will, like the Gemara says, Ba'al karchach atachai. It's something that comes from beyond ourselves. So when one of those creations begins to lift itself up, kishteim bruis, v'shteim shabbos, in the sense that they're both created, they're both essentially the same. So v'sheker hu sha'adam manase atzmei al chaverei. It's total sheker when one individual chooses now to lift themselves up in such a way that they're out of the category of existence. Ha-sheker ha'omed b'yesod ha'gaiva hazoi spein shvuyim. It is this fundamental deceptive nature, the sheker, that is within this gaiva among fundamentally equal beings. Hu hayotzer es ha'isnasos hagasa v'amenufeches. This is the yesod of what brings about the hisnasos that is gasa, that is coarse, v'amenufeches, like blown up like chametz, which is detestable. But in Enolimar, we mean to say shiur hameguna shel hagaiva, that the disgusting, abominable form of gaiva is shel adam minafeach atzmai, that a human being, a creation, within the realm of all other created beings, puffs itself up midama atzmai legadol, to demonstrate itself to be greater than v'doires begasos hasacherim, and in that mode chooses to trample on others, to look down on others, to feel that others are fundamentally lower than he is. Hu taitzar shel sheker, and that is an effect of a fundamental misunderstanding, of a miscategorization of self, so that a person can act in such a way. Shel ivos ha'emes. It's the corruption of truth. Ki kulam bruim, because again, existentially speaking, we're all within one category. We're all created. V'kulam mekablim es chiyusa me'Hashem yisbarach, and we're all receiving. We're not giving. We're all receiving. Shu ha'makar b'hasharis l'chalakim v'amatzias, and He is the great equalizer. Mashpil geim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that casts down those that lift themselves too high, and at the same time, makbiyah shifalim, as we're going to learn, also lifts up those that are yotzim and aklal in a negative, shiftless way, which is also negative because there's sheker there too. It's the sheker in gaiva and the sheker in anava psula that is so damaging. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He lifts everything back up to a plane of equality. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, the person that lifts themselves up, no, let's put you back into your place. And at the same time, the person that falls too low by convincing themselves that they're below the category where they're really at, HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts them back. How so? It's very, very deep. Usually we think about it in a way of mitzias, and this is the regular kavana, that if a person in life will lift themselves too high, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings them back down, right? And a person that's the victim of being mistreated and abused and stepped on, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will lift that person lovingly up. But based on everything we're saying, it's much deeper than that. it's not simply this old paradigm of there being a being called God, and Hashem is like the puppet master and doing things, changing the code, which is already even a deeper level that most people think about. But that Hashem, lifts this one up and pushes this one down. It's much deeper. It's that recognizing the realization of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the truth of this Metzius of Yachid, is itself what is Mashpil Geim, and itself what is Magbiah Shvalim. You see the difference? It is an automatic philosophical process. It's not that Hashem is now going and changing things around this world via Hashkacha, which is also true. Now we're talking much broader, right? And therefore Hashem is bringing down those that have risen too high and bringing up those that have risen too low. It's that from the standpoint of Yud Kei Vav Kei, of Hashem's Metzias, of Yachid, Echad Yachid Umiyuchad, Memela, it's Mashbil Geim, and Memela Magbiah Shvalim, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes the category within which both are in exactly the same place. They are both Nivraim, vis-a-vis Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's what we mean when we say Hashem is Mashbil Geim and Magbiah Shvalim, because it's just a matter of drawing the lines of categorization to fit them both in such a way that they're both the same, even though this one looks like it's a little bit more to the right of the line, and this one looks a little bit more left. It's no longer up and down, because we shift the whole category. It used to be that we thought the category was this way, and this one is up here, and this one's down here. But all of a sudden, it's mamish like you turn the whole column this way, and there's no up or down. It's just left or right. Right? It has nothing to do with higher or lower. It just has to do with where they happen to seem to be along this spectrum within one category, so they're one. They're one. It's a whole different way of looking at Mashbal Geim and Magbiah Shvalim. So let's get back to this. It's the Sheker Shabai. HaSheker ha'omid b'yesod ha'gei'eh ha'zois bein shvuyim hu ha'yotzer sasnasas ha'gasa v'ha'menufeches. Right? We did this already. Yeah. Hu toitzer shel sheker. Look at the second to last line in the paragraph. It is a toitzer. What's the translation of toitzer? The offshoot. Yeah. The outcome. Yes. Toitzer, or offshoot, outcome of sheker shel ivos ha'emes, the corruption of what's actually going on. Ki kulam bruim. Because they're all in one category. We're all humans. We're all creations. So now that he sets up this foundation, he says, again, the fundamental definition of gaiva is that a person thinks that he is what he isn't. And that's the sheker shabai, which is the opposite of elukus, which is the opposite of tov, because Hashem likechem emes, and anything that's not emes is sheker, and anything that's sheker is fundamentally opposed and contrasted to that which is good, that which is God. Halei be'emes, kol ma sheyesh lanu, because the truth is that whatever it is that we have, einay me'atzmenu klal ve'ikar, it's not from us. Ela mimenu yizbarach. It's all, not just from Hashem, it is a manifestation of the Ar of Hashem. Quite literally, if you choose not to be so metaphysical about it, just simply speaking, the fact that I'm able to sit here and talk is not me. There is no me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving me life. The fact that we're here able to sit and to learn and to listen, it's not us. Ba'al karchach atachai. Hashem is giving us not just everything we have, so my parnasa comes from Hashem. It's much deeper than that. My very life force, the very fact of my consciousness, of being here in this realm in a way that one day I won't, and the way that all of us one day won't be here. So 120 of us Hashem shall live long and happy lives. It's all Him. It's all Him. So there's no room for gaiva. It's all Him. Ein oid milvadai. Kol ma sheyesh lanu eina me'atzmenu klal ve'ikar ela mimenu yizbarach. It's Him, shu mekar hakol, that He is the source of all being. V'hu ma'anek chiyas u'bracha v'kiyim lakol. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like nursing us, and every atom in existence is drawing life force from Hashem. Mi sheyesh by chachma, a person who has intellect, or mi sheyesh loy oisher, or a person who has wealth. Kol ze einai ela birchas Hashem alav. It's just a greater manifestation of Hashem's energy manifesting itself in this particular person's life in this particular way. Like we said, using another mashal, we can use another mashal. Like dibur, like words that emerge from a person's mouth, they're not separate entities from him. They're They're bound up with the breath that he took within himself and then breathed out in the form of a voice that's produced by the vocal cords that then gets qualified and quantified through the klei hadibor and then becomes a word. But it's mushrish in the essence of him. And that's what we are, klape Hashem. Alone, we're like a wind-driven leaf. We're like kiyam v'havayo mitzias without any existence of our own. Al kain, therefore, ma yaram adam roish al chaverei. What is this that a person could lift their head above another being? To think that they have, in some sense, something fundamentally better than anybody else. This is such a strong mashal. He says the matter is comparable to shliach ha'shemabir schum kesef me'asher la'ani. Like a shliach. Somebody sends somebody to go ahead and to give 100 pounds to an ani that he saw in shul. And he's running out and he says, you don't mind taking this and giving it. And imagine that shliach goes, and he gives over the money, but amda nafshis hamakrina ki'ilu hu hamanik, hu hanoisein. And he gives it in such a way where, with the whole presentation, I'm the one giving you this tzedakah money. It's me. Hu hagoyim al chesed. And Imamish feels the whole experience like he was the one that gave the chesed. Not even because he's choosing to lie for whatever reason, but because imagine the dimyan that for some reason he maybe has short-term memory, he forgets, and he enters into the whole energy like he is the one giving a very sizable amount to a meshulach that he sees in shul, with all of what that is.
Pride that everyone should see. Oh look, I'm giving this guy 100 pounds. There it is.
Right.
I'm going to give you. What is it for? Oh yeah, here.
Yes, all right. But that would be. I'm trying to make it even deeper because that would still be that he's trying to lie. So mainly he knows the MS, but he's just faking it. I'm saying, imagine the dimyan of a person that falls so deep into the dimyan that he mamish feels. Like he forgets bichlal that it's not his, and that's more apropos to this mashal.
Because we see a lot of time in the Torah and the whole Chazal, plenty of times, where it says it's talk is a big schos, a big mitzvah. So it does cater to the idea that yes, it's me.
It can, right? Imagine that deception with all of it: the religious element, the societal element, the deception of it. With a complete and utter denial of the fact that this person is only at sinar. I love this expression, nar shlichuyas, right? What does it mean? It means he's just he is the messenger boy, delivery boy, the delivery boy, the paper boy. Kach benimshal. So it's funny when we learn about the mashal, but this is what I do at least so much of the time, and many of us can fall into this. Kach benimshal. The same thing is true for the nimshal, and he says ein aroich me'amashal, and it's infinitely worse than this mashal. Ki be'emes banu mitzaratzmenu, from our own standpoint vis-a-vis our mitzias, ein mamashos elorik ve'efes. Mamish, there's nothing. Mamish, there's nothing.
Even in the maises within?
Nothing from this standpoint.
Mitzad
atzmai and mitzad the etzem underlying kiyum of our mitzias. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the realm, and that's what we're going to learn next week. And Hashem wants us to take pride in our maisim, and that's the shvach, that even though the truth is Yachid gei'eh, still la'amcha panei. We do exist, and our maisim do matter. We're talking about from one bechina, which is important to keep our mind on because it helps focus us in our maisim that do matter. Right? So it's this delicate game. Remember, keep on toggling back. It's a good thing, from one view to the other view, the ray to the sun, right? So now we're talking about the sun, the ray in the sun. So from that standpoint, ein mamashos elurik ve'efes. Rak chiyusai, all there is, divine energy, va'oirei, and divine light, v'tuvai, and divine goodness, v'shefa birchasai, and the shefa, very always hard to translate that word. Effluence is a fancy word. That's a good translation of Hashem's bracha. Heim hamamidim oisanu. That's what's literally giving us life. Heim hamekayimim oisanu. It is those aspects of Hashem's hashpa that are giving us existence. Veheim bekar kol kishranesenu v'chol ma sheyesh lanu. Anything that we're able to have, that's a product of our having been able to do, that's a product of our having been able to function, is literally all founded on the chiyus of Hashem. L'chein, therefore, hagaiva shel hanivra hu sheker. From the standpoint of the nivra, that's why gaiva is so detestable, because it's sheker, evus. It's a corruption, gasus ve'atimus. It's a total coarse covering over of the truth. Memela, therefore, therefore, because it's rooted in sheker, the way it's going to manifest is in a horrible. It's going to cause all kinds of terrible things along the way. If a person lives with this perspective, it's rooted in sheker. Memela, any totsa of that is going to be corrupted. Memela goyel. It's going to be filled with nausea, with disgustingness, and it's going to be off-putting to any nefesh yishar that senses that there's something here it's rooted in sheker. But there's nothing worse than that. And it's a rot is worse than that which is on the side of the street. Okay, so we're gonna end here for now. Let's just wrap it up, and then we'll pick up next week from this. But with this, he's answering the question. When we refer to Hashem's Yachid, which is gei'eh, there's only one word for it, and that word is emes. And that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu's gaiva is not detestable, chas v'shalom, and anyway, it's not a bad midah. Because the only reason any other kind of gaiva within creation is a bad midah is because it's a sheker midah. But by Hashem, it's mamish emes. It's mamish emes. It is just, again, it's just descriptive. It's a fact. It's not a manner. It's not descriptive. It's not a manner in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu carries himself, like with this energy of arrogance.
Or he believes.
It's just or what he believes to be the case. It is Yachid gei'eh. Memela, from the standpoint of our understanding the oimik of this one little Hebrew word, 4 little letters, Yachid, then we understand that gei'eh is the most beautiful thing in the world. Right? From that standpoint, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Taka is not just in another category vis-a-vis his creations, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only category there is. And we call that Ein Sof. We call that Ein Oid Milvadai. Okay, so we're just opening the sugya of Yachid gei'eh. And Be'ezras Hashem, just see next week we're going to learn how this relates to La'amcha Pnei. We're going to get into that, what that means, and what's the correlation between Yachid gei'eh, where there's nothingness, and then we're going to get into our maisim, which is la'amcha pnei, and what la'amcha means, and what pnei means. Not just that Hashem should turn to us, but the pnimius of amcha. We're going to get into all of that, which is very, very deep. And then we're going to spend another week on Zoichrei Kedusha Secha, maybe even 2 weeks on that. It's so much to learn. And then we're going to
2025.
We're going to right in 30 years. We're going to go right, and then after that, we're going to look at the context of all of Anu B'Koyach split into categories of all the different ideas, and then finally we're going to look at the Rosh Hashanah, and then we're going to move into Shabbos Enu Kabel. So there's plenty to learn. 6 short words that contain within them so much of the foundation of Yiddishkeit. I was really thinking this morning, if I was running a school, like you could turn Anu B'Koyach into a whole, I would say even multi-year curriculum of the foundations of Emunah. Maybe just Anu B'Koyach.
You know how much there is. We already know this.
Yes, yeah, and think about it. If you're teaching this to high school kids, I mean, you think about how long this would take, to really delve into these ideas, and it's so useful practically because it's just one tiny little. It's not like a whole book of text that they have to memorize. You say it all the time, and really just to pick one thing and Miyot Hamachzeka Samaruba, as the lashon in Breslov, it's tiny, but it contains everything there is. And Be'ez Hashem, when we finish all of this, we're going to go back and review, so that to make sure, we'll just do a quick review, and I hope, Bli Neder, Be'ez Hashem, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, because again, this is 10 years from now, but we will, Be'ez Hashem, have a booklet that just makes it very easy to quickly review all the meanings of all the stanzas and all the Rosh Hashanah that we learned. Bli Neder, that's the plan. Okay, so we're just beginning this phase of the journey of Anu B'Koyach.
So isn't that all?